So again, I'm going to turn this over to the experts.
I don't know if we're experts, but we can at
Yes,
least speak
and-
to it a little bit.
No more than we do.
Chris is an expert too.
And we get another expert.
Yeah.
You can come up and. Oh! All right, and CK's going to he's going to do a little video for us. So if ever we need this information in the future, we can have it. Now, predicated upon, there's a lot of information out there. I've talked with Elise Davis, who is our director over economic development for the whole state, if I believe correctly. And see, she has to work hand in hand with, if a company or a business comes to them saying, hey, we want 1 million gazillion megawatts. Well, they can't let us citizens go dark. They have to manage all of this information. And then Jamal Jesse, who is the director of workforce development, I work with him also and invite him to items because Georgia Power and all the EMCs are our partners. And you know, now that I've really gotten into this more and more, you would not believe how much conservation work the EMCs and Georgia Power does for this great state of Georgia. So I'm gonna let you have it, Ms. Rhonda.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for having us. We're excited to be here to talk a little bit about our planning process and how we go about making sure that we can meet the electrical needs of our customers. So as you all know, or maybe you don't, so I'll start off making assuming that you don't know, but we work with the Georgia Public Service Commission. Anybody heard about that group?
Just
Okay.
a little bit.
All right, very good. And so we work with them to meet the increasing electricity needs of our customers through what we call an integrated resource plan. Anybody heard of an IRP?
Yes.
Okay, so the integrated resource plan, we call it our IRP. And the IRP is a report that we pull together detailing how Georgia Power is going to supply the energy needs for the state. We file that IRP with the Public Service Commission, and that report details how we're going to cover the energy needs over 20 years. We file that report every 3 years with the Public Service Commission. And that 20-year projection that we include in that report, it covers things like future fuel costs, load and energy forecasts, the analysis of generation technologies, those things that we have researched that we find are coming on that are new generation technologies. It also includes a 10-year transmission plan. Is everybody familiar with transmission versus distribution? Okay. Okay, transmission are the big power lines that take the power from the generation plant to a substation. The substation then converts the energy to a lower wattage so that it can come into our homes and businesses. The lines that carry it from the substation to our homes and businesses are called distribution lines. So we have to make plans for the big power lines that carry the energy across the country. And so we have a 10-year transmission plan. Those plans are, very extensive. They cost a lot of money. They take a long time. So we have to make sure that we're looking at that plan over a longer time period. So we include a 10-year transmission plan. It also includes economic assessment of potential and proposed energy efficiency and demand response programs. So we're also looking at how can we use energy more efficiently, because we want to make sure that we can get the best use out of the energy that we produce. So we're looking at energy efficiency programs and ways that we can use energy more efficiently. And so after the Georgia Public Service Commission approves the report, then we can go ahead and proceed with our planning for how we're going to construct and build the resources that we need in order to provide the power. And as you all probably have experienced or heard or read about, Georgia is growing very fast. We have become the #1 state to do business in the country. And so because of that, we are attracting lots of businesses in all different arenas. We're talking automotive, we're talking electric transportation manufacturing, battery manufacturing, clean energy manufacturing, agriculture, aerospace, and of course, data centers. So we are seeing that growth across a wide variety of industries, and we have to be prepared to serve that load. And so that's what the integrated resource plan does. And Georgia is open and ready for business. And so we are attracting all types of businesses to Georgia, and we use that integrated resource plan to help support that growth. And so what Kevin is going to talk about is a little bit more about the details about how we do that planning, what we look for. And so I'm going to turn it over to him to talk a little bit more in more detail about what we look at and plan for.
Yeah, so
Just one item.
Yeah.
Just to let you all know, Public Service Commission, those members are appointed by, they elected?
They are elected.
Elected by the citizens of the state of Georgia.
That is correct.
Rhonda also is a member of the Conyers-Rockdale Economic Development Council.
Yes.
Which meets the second Thursday of every month at 8:30 a.m. at 936 Green Street. It's a public meeting, you can come. But again, she's our voice regarding power, regarding Conyers-Rockdale Economic Development Council.
So we have not noticed a slowdown at all in Georgia. I mean, to Rhonda's point, clean energy tech keeps coming here. Battery manufacturers, solar panel manufacturers, and of course the big elephant in the room are data centers. They keep coming to Georgia because why? Well, we have been voted or stated as the #1 state to do business in the last 10 years by Area Development Magazine. The University of Virginia ran a study back during COVID, during the lockdowns, and I remember. I need to put this closer. All right. So University of Virginia ran a study back in 2020. We were all locked out in COVID. And they projected the population of Georgia we were going to be the #5 state by 2040. Think about the ramifications of that. Infrastructure, education, traffic, and of course power. I mean, that's a huge component. 2040 is not far away, so we got to prepare for it. Georgia Power is ready. We are open for business, as Rhonda said, and we're working hard to make sure all of our customers, whoever they are, residential, commercial, industrial, have the power needs that they're requiring from us. Real quick, I'm going to go into our process. In order to go ahead and meet these needs, we've got a plan for all this influx. Rhonda mentioned that the integrated resource plan that the PSC approves, it's every 3 years. We got another one actually next year, I believe, right?
Yeah, 2025.
So with that process, it's a 10, 15, 20-year outlook that we're planning for. We've got projects that are kicking tires right now. Currently, I'm probably managing over 40 projects in my territory. Half of those are data centers. It's a gold rush. There's just no other word to describe it. We have a dedicated team that does area planning studies for our transmission lines, for our distribution lines. If a big project comes in, a data center comes in, let's say right down the road here off of Sigmund Road, we've got to study that system thoroughly, inside and out. We dot I's, we cross T's, and we make sure that our other utility served customers are not going to be impacted by that in a negative manner. These studies take up to 3 months sometimes. I mean, it's very detailed. On top of that, there's a construction component that goes into it. So when we get a project X that comes over and we've already studied it, can we meet the needs of that project by Q1 of 2027, if that's the goal? Sometimes we can. If we can't, we tell the customer why, but we always try to get all hands on deck in order to make sure that that customer is not going to lose revenue because of us. We are going to make sure we do everything we can to get that system built in time. Let me talk about some of the trends I'm seeing, and Chris, you may see some of this too. 10 years ago, your standard 200,000 square foot warehouse industrial customer probably was only using 2,000 kW maybe for generating their widgets. I am seeing double and triple usage right now, and it's because of the compounding impact of technology, the servers that these customers are utilizing now. Yeah, AI with the data centers, but everybody's using the phones now. Electrification of these buildings. Natural gas is probably on the back door now. So cooking, heat is more being utilized by electricity. And then, of course, you got the automation component to it. The motor load is incredibly more demanding. So that same warehouse that was using 2 megawatts 10 years ago is now using 5, 6 right now. So think about how much that impacts our company and our utilities in the area. So we've got to think about how we're going to handle that. Also planning. I'm helping head up some substation builds. We've got new substations that are being built. A lot of reconductoring of lines. Sometimes you have to reconductor 40 miles of line. When you're traveling on the interstate and you see these big towers, sometimes we're working 1 mile a month to try to reconductor those. So in general, that's kind of what we're doing right now. Project life of these projects, data centers, we plan for 30 years. So anyways, that's kind of a general high level overview. I don't want to get into the weeds. But any questions about all that?
Kevin.
Yes, sir.
Kevin, you mentioned Gold Rush. What is it about the data centers that has created this gold rush, and what are they looking for when they say stick their head into Rockdale County and say, oh yeah, Rockdale County would be a good spot? What's the magic button?
Land availability, cheap rates. I mean, our partners at Snap and Shoals and Georgia Power, we keep rates down for these businesses. Power availability. Georgia is one of the few states that's still open for business for data centers.
Do the new nuclear plants play a part?
They do, but part of our IRP is to procure even more to be able to serve. That's why we're still saying we're open for business.
So as we look in the media now, and I've seen some items from Public Service Commission, and you're having to work with them about, I'll call it reintroducing fossil fuels to meet some of these demands. So I've had some questions regarding, well, I thought we were headed in this direction, but I understand with this development that's having to go on that you all are having to look at some alternatives or reintroduce some of the fossil fuels to meet some of these demands, not totally, but at a certain percentage.
You want to take that?
I think there were plans to close some of our plants sooner than we're actually going to be able to do. However, we are still planning to meet our clean energy goals by the time that we expected to do that. So those we're not reopening.
We're not going back to 100% coal.
No, we're not doing.
Closing some of them down as quickly.
That's exactly
right.
right. That's
right.
exactly right.
That's some concerns.
The other thing people don't understand, if you put all of your eggs in one basket, and this is a co-op philosophy, I think Georgia Power shares a little bit, but I don't want to put words in their mouth. We try to have a mix of energy available to us, and on a daily basis, the price of coal, the price of natural gas, the things that we use to fuel those plants fluctuates, sometimes wildly. Natural gas is one of the most volatile markets out there. Traders will yank the prices up and down we're buying that to generate electricity. It's got to pass through to our customers. So every single day, you've got utilities in the state that are juggling. What is the cheapest way that I can generate electricity today? Because none of you want to pay more for your electric bill than you have to. And if you put all of your eggs in one basket, you're riding whatever that market price is for that, and it gets passed on. So it's good to have a good mix of generation. We want as much clean energy as we can get, but if you've got to burn a little bit of coal, natural gas, use some hydro resources, and you've got some wonderful nuclear units that have come online. It's a long time to build. They're going to generate for the next 60 to 80 years, and that's clean energy. So as we work towards that, in the meantime, nobody wants to foot a bill any higher than they have to. So you got to kind of keep that all in mind behind the scenes. You don't necessarily catch that out of the news. They hammer what they like to hammer that gins up people watching the TV or reading the articles. Behind the scenes, we're struggling to keep it all balanced and make sure everybody's happy with their bill, even though it's more, I'm sure, than anybody would want.
And that they have power, right?
Yes.
When you flip that switch, you want those lights to come on.
That goes
That's
without
exactly right.
Carl, yeah?
You mentioned some quantities or megawatts requirements in some of these warehouse buildings.
Mhm.
Would that top end be data centers, or data centers kind of even above what you just mentioned in that range?
Yeah, data centers are incrementally higher than that.
Okay,
So
that's all I want to
it's,
make sure I've been.
you know,
And data
Kevin,
centers-
when, in looking at a data center, the research that I've seen show that there's basically four sizes to the ones they're trying to build as far as their consumption of resources: small, medium, large, and huge. Do all four of those size of data centers, or does every data center require a substation, or is it depend upon the size that's being put in?
so our Snap and Shoals might have a different philosophy than us, but our philosophy is we are not going to utilize an area substation dedicated to a community for a data center. They have to pay for their own substation. That's dedicated to
So
them.
every data center is going to have their own substation.
Yes, sir.
Unless it's extremely.
You notice it's like a, yeah,
It's funny, he talked about industries that we're seeing that were 2 to 4 megawatts, that used to be like, that's a good sized customer. And in the last 2 years, I don't know how much, I get 3 or 4 calls a week, and people are, it's a lot of developers trying to find land and put together a deal and be in the middle of it. And they're like, well, you know, how much energy can I pull out of this substation? Well, the sky's the limit if you want to pay for it, but you start talking about what they have to pay for to do, because we're not gonna, I mean, we've been around for 85 years, we serve 110,000 customers, we're not gonna do something or make a misstep that is gonna put those customers at risk. And Georgia Power, or any utility in the state's not going to do that as well, so you start pushing it back on them, and real quick, you get a lot of people that are like, well, I'm not interested. And then every once in a while, you get one of them step up to the table and are like, oh, we understand that it'll be $200 million to do the upgrades to the infrastructure we need and build a substation, and we're willing to write that check. And it's like, okay, somebody's ready to play.
So
But it's a lot of speculation at this point.
you guys are focused on the power side of it, and as far as what the consumption is going to be. The other piece to that you don't get involved with, is important to us as a county, is the water consumption.
Yeah.
And that's a whole different ballgame. And that takes a different scenario of requirements, does it not?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Danny will address those later.
Right.
So, yes, sir. Mr. Trump.
I had a question on what we talked about is the gold rush of all these new businesses coming in and requiring your power requirements. You said you project out maybe 70, 80 years. It takes a long time to bring more nuclear online, I know, but what are you going to do if these projections, you keep approving all of them? Can you tell me that you're going to have enough power to supply all these new ones coming in fast enough that you can keep up with what you now have? It sounds like it's exponentially going to overcome that.
We would not agree to them and sign on the dotted line to provide power to them if we didn't see a path to doing that. Data centers aside, I think you're starting to see it in the news. The state is going to have to start building more generation just because we've been 10 years in a row now number one state to do business in. It's not all data centers. Yeah, they suck up a lot of power, a lot of water. They bring some benefits, tax benefits and stuff to the communities, but even if you set those aside, the state is still growing. We've not run out of energy, but we're getting to where you can see the light at the end of the tunnel. And if we continue to grow as a state, then we're gonna have to build some more generation. What that looks like, I don't know. It does take some time, but I don't think anybody is gonna sign up and tell a data center, especially a large one, we can do this without knowing, okay, we're sign some power purchase agreements, we're bringing in power from other areas, and we've got it here, there, and you lock that down before you ever do that, because they don't want to commit to, you know, hundreds of millions of dollars of construction costs if they're not going to be able to be served.
And again, it's a 20-year look, but we file that plan every 3 years. So we're making adjustments to that 20-year plan and that look every 3 years. And we filed one in 2022. We saw the growth, and we did an updated one in 2023, at the end of 23, to make adjustments for what we saw as that expanding growth, to ensure that we had a plan for meeting those power needs. So we're always looking at it.
So is it gonna be politically speaking, is it gonna be the governor that makes the final say that, okay, this is too much, we can't handle it, the power companies can't keep up, you guys go somewhere else? I don't see that happening, but somebody's gotta be able to make a final judgment saying, is this too much?
They had discussions in legislature this year about that, and I think that will continue to happen.
Absolutely.
There's a certain mix that is good for Georgia, and then there's probably just a mix that's too much, and you're just building generation and using water resources just for this, and I think there's a happy medium somewhere, but it probably would be politically driven. There were several subcommittee discussions this year. I don't think anything made it out of subcommittee, but yeah, you could talk about this too, Ron. This was the first time I ever, and I deal with the legislature every year, this was the first time they sat up and was like, oh, wait, we're 10 years in a row, we're number one to do business, and they've been inviting the world to come to Georgia, and then it's like, well, you can serve them, right? It's like,
Let's talk.
Let me get back to you on that. So they finally are starting to wake up, we want them here in Georgia, they bring good things, jobs and all of that, but there's a flip side of that to serving them, not only electricity, it's the land they occupy, they need people to work for them, and the water resources to go along.
Yeah.
Rhonda, I think Director, Mr. Wheeler, you had some concerns, questions?
Let's take questions.
Yes, sir. Thank you for taking time to answer the question. I apologize. Audio is going in and out. But my question is for when we have data centers that have to go through the POCAN process, and staff wants to ensure that we get all the facts out. What is Georgia Power San Michel's process to make sure that wherever potential project is coming for the county, that we have the correct information as far as you have the capacity to handle this data center that's coming to the area, and to handle whatever potential maybe other data centers that may be in a certain geographical footprint. We want to ensure from a planning perspective that we have all the facts, all the information, so we can present this to the board of commissioners and to our planning commission. Because again, we want to make sure that the overall impact of the data centers does not have a negative impact. Well, if it does have a negative impact, then we need to inform our elected officials and our planning board so they are aware of that. Make the best decision on behalf of the citizens of Rockdale County.
Yeah, so we have a economic development person assigned to the Rockdale County area. His name is Andrew, and Andrew will be working with Kevin Hanna and his team as you all start to entertain potential projects for the area to determine if it is a good fit for the county. And so I would say that information is probably shared very extensively with Kevin and his team to make sure that you all are aware of what the requirements are and what the impact is to the county.
What's Andrew's last name?
Carnes.
C-A-R-N-E-S.
Carnes. And Andrew has been coming to the meetings, the CREDC meetings, just to observe and hear conversations and provide his input and insight. So he is connected and engaged. It used to be Brooke Perez, but Brooke was promoted, and so Andrew has come in.
One other item, then we'll switch over to water.
Sure.
Big with the Georgia Water Coalition. We're closing down these plants. Coal ash. So what are we doing to make sure that it doesn't leach into the ground? And I know there's
Now
some,
you're stepping outside of my
uh,
space, but for future, we can probably get someone out here to talk to you about coal ash and what our plan is for how we're addressing coal ash.
'cause I know there's lining in these, coal ash ponds and all kinds of things. So again, the Georgia Water Coalition, if you want to join that, there's 250 affiliates throughout the state, but Georgia Water Coalition is looking at all the rivers, looking at all the waters throughout the state, and that's one of their big questions back to Georgia Power. It's about the protection of these coal ash ponds and making sure that coal ash is not leaching into the ground.
So we can connect about that.
There you go. All right, so everybody good on power? The lights are on.
Did Chris have a question?
I think
No, Chris Coran. His name was up earlier, wasn't it? He's looks like he's left.
all right, yeah.
Okay.
He had another meeting to go to. Thank y'all.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah,
Appreciate you.
and appreciate it.